Talking with Tom. Turn your dial to cable 18. You will see the best in TV. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom. Sit back and listen. You will hear the best conversation of the year. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom.
Welcome to Talking with Tom. I'm Tom Dacey alongside Ed McCarver. Hello, Everett.
Hello, Tommy. How are you? Good to see you again. Good to be back here in the friendly confines of WPAA here in Wallingford.
Yes, and a warm one today it was.
Yes, you know, if you told me 2 or 3 months ago that I would be complaining about the heat, I would have said you're nuts. But maybe I'll complain a little bit today. It's a little humid, but I'll take it. I'll take it over shoveling 7 days a week.
And but you said that was Maureen's job. That's what you always say.
I did, and I was spoken to about that by my lovely bride.
Good, I'm glad.
But it is good to be back here at the as we're taping this. We're the first part of May, and kind of a busy April, but it is nice to be back.
I understand you just came back from Vegas.
I took a pilgrimage. I was among the many that thought Manny Pacquiao would shock the world and beat Floyd Mayweather last April 29th, but I was proven wrong quite easily by Floyd Mayweather. I have to tell you one thing I did, though, and actually I didn't tell you this off air, but I went to the sports book and I put $20 on the New York Jets to win the Super Bowl this year. And of course, with that $20, that will parlay me into $1,000. So after the Super Bowl, you may see some new duds on yours truly.
I highly doubt that.
Well, hope springs eternal.
But speaking of football,
yes.
What do you think of the situation with the New England Patriots?
Yeah, the thing that, you know, it's Deflategate never ends. I thought once the Super Bowl was over and we had put all the, you know, deflated football things behind us, but now it's rearing its ugly head again. As we tape now, Brady is going to be suspended for 4 games. He's going to appeal it. Yep. Unfortunately, none of those are against the Jets or your team, the Dolphins.
And they also lost their draft picks for the next 2 years.
I did see that, but they're going to appeal it, and I'm sure it'll be drawn out in court. But it'll give all the sports shows, you know, the Boston sports shows, and of course Mike Francesa out of New York will be talking about it ad nauseum, I think, until kickoff. But interesting stuff.
We have a great show this evening. I know our guest is someone you're very familiar with.
Yep. Besides a friend of mine, and even though I'm retired, he's my boss. But actually, we're going to talk about the standardized patients. And I think when one thinks of standardized patient, I think the first thing that comes into everybody's mind is Seinfeld. The famous Seinfeld episode where Kramer was a standardized patient. It was classic stuff. But we're actually going to talk seriously, and maybe we'll have a few laughs thrown into about the standardized patient, which is going on in some Connecticut schools now, including Quinnipiac University. And I want to introduce our guest. His name is Dr. Aaron Bernard. He is an associate professor of medical service at Quinnipiac medical sciences rather, at Quinnipiac University at the Frank H. Netter School of Medicine in North Haven. Dr. Bernard, Aaron, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How can we call you? Is Dr.
Aaron.
Aaron, okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, and thank you for stopping by.
No, it's my pleasure to be here. It's always fun to come meet people and talk about standardized patients, simulation, and healthcare. So happy to talk about whatever you guys questions you may have.
Well, we have several hard-hitting questions that we're going to direct your way here.
Right.
I want to start out by asking you, what is the formal definition of a standardized patient?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So if I give it a one-liner, I would say standardized patient is someone who's trained to kind of portray a person with a medical condition or in a medical situation for the purpose of student learning or assessment, and that later part's really the key part. It's really you're playing the part of a patient so that students can learn. And the term standardize, where that comes from, is one of the goals of having these patients is that if you had 100 medical students or nursing students and you wanted them all to be able to experience talking to a patient who has depression, you could send them out to all the clinics and hope that they all are able to see a patient with depression, but it's hard to standardize that. Where with our patients, we can have all the students see somebody who's using the same script so that we know all of our students are kind of learning or having the same experience. The other two kind of synonyms for standardized patient are simulated patient, obviously,
Okay.
And then at some schools they use the term patient instructor because we can get into this, but besides just playing the part like Kramer and such, it's kind of evolved since then, and our standardized patients not only play the part, but they actually learn enough about healthcare, communication, how you should interview patients, that they actually grade the students and give the students feedback on how they performed. So that's why some places will use the term patient instructor, but I would say standardized patient's the most common one used nationwide.
How long have standardized patients been used by medical schools? Is this, I know the Seinfeld thing was almost 20 years ago, but,
Exactly,
but how long has it been around?
Yeah, 20 years ago it was kind of cutting edge. There are, there's like reports of it dating back 30 years, but 20 years ago it was really kind of the more, kind of schools that were really pushing the envelope. But about 2003, 2004, that's when it kind of exploded. And it took off for a number of reasons. One was traditionally in medical schools, medical students had to take 3 national tests. And they were all written tests. But in 2003, they added what's called a clinical skills test, where students have to go to testing centers and they actually see standardized patients and they're graded, and it counts the same as their written national board. So once that happened, there was a lot of kind of impotence for kind of medical schools to invest in this sort of educational modality, which is a big investment for schools. The other thing that happened around that time was a real push towards patient safety in healthcare, and with that push came the concept of simulation, not just with patients but with procedures, and so those kind of factors really pushed it to where it's pretty much at most, if not all, medical schools in America, they have some sort of program. They vary in their kind of how much they use it and how robust it is, but that's kind of been the evolution.
Do you know how many medical schools in the state have standardized patients? I know besides Quinnipiac, UConn, I think?
UConn does, and UConn, they were actually one of the kind of pioneers in the field, and they were helpful. We just opened our school at Quinnipiac. We opened 2 years ago, and they were great. When we opened, they were mentors to us and getting our program off the ground. Yale also has a standardized patient program as well. So I think that's all the 3 schools in Connecticut. So we all do, and we try to collaborate and help each other out. At first it was UConn mostly helping us out, getting our kind of our bearings, but now we're trying to collaborate a little bit moving forward. Yeah. And actually I think there's one more program in Western Connecticut that's not affiliated with a medical school, but a hospital runs. I forget where that is exactly.
I believe Danbury Hospital.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Now, is the program at the North Haven campus, or is it the Hamden campus?
Correct. All of the most of the graduate programs at Quinnipiac are in the North Haven campus, and that's where the School of Medicine is, School of Nursing, Health Sciences. So we're all there together. They also have the School of Law and Education there. And so, yeah, that's where our program is. And so our students, they kind of go throughout the state when they eventually move on and see, real patients, but that's kind of our central hub. And, it's a beautiful facility, just opened 2 years ago, and so we're very fortunate. We kind of have a state-of-the-art facility with recording software and all this stuff.
Yeah, and those of us that are a little bit long in the tooth, not you, Tommy, but me, remember, it's the old Blue Cross
Yes.
Blue Shield building, everybody will say.
Matter of
in
fact, my
North Haven.
sister worked there.
Like Blue Cross Blue Shield? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is a beautiful, beautiful facility.
Yep.
What is it about standardized patients that actually helps the medical students?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of things. I would say at first the biggest thing that they need is kind of a safe, nurturing environment. You got to take yourself back to, you're somebody in your mid-20s, some of them, or some of our other colleagues who use our standardized patients are even earlier, 20, 22, but most of our medical students mid-20s. And, a lot of them have spent a lot of their kind of life, exceeding in kind of schoolwork, books and things of that nature, and now they're starting to have to interact with patients, and at 25, they're being asked to go talk to, people much their senior, which is kind of a interesting power dynamic, and they're supposed to be giving them life advice, and so it's real intimidating for them. So the first thing that they do is they get comfortable just being with people, talking to people, they get comfortable asking questions that are more sensitive, and they know that it's an environment where they can take chances, they could say something, and if they kind of stumble and say it inappropriately by accident, or, they know that it's safe and they're there to learn, and that's expected that they will kind of stumble. So that's the first thing. But then, even more than that, what's interesting is one of the things they find is when the medical students and other students go out to their clinical rotations in the hospital or clinics, and many people have probably experienced this in their time with doctors and such, a student might come in and talk to you, then they leave, then the doctor and the student come back in together, but nobody actually watched that student talk to the patient. So if you're not directly observing the student, you don't really know what they said. Even if they got the right information, you don't really know how they got it. And so what we're able to do is we're able to record all the interactions, videotape them, so that the students can get feedback, from their faculty, from the standardized patients, and they can watch the videos themselves and learn. So that's another big advantage, is just that chance to kind of practice, and get feedback, which they really don't always get as they move on in their time, surprisingly.
So someone could be a brilliant medical student, but yet when it comes time for the one-on-one reaction, could fail miserably just in communicating with the...
It's interesting. It really is. Obviously, everybody knows that, book smarts and kind of street smarts are two different things. But what's even more interesting is that somebody who can talk to other people really well at a barbecue about sports, generally they're better at talking to patients, but it's not exactly the same thing. Communicating with somebody, in a social environment is not the same as a kind of intimate, doctor-patient relationship environment. And so these are really kind of, unique skills that have to be learned. It was always just assumed for long periods of time that people would just pick it up, and if we just teach them all the book smarts and they know all the medicine, they'll just pick up how to talk to patients. But there's an art and a skill to it, and so what we try to do is, obviously some students will come in and they kind of got it. They have the gift, they're very good communicators, and we just try to nudge them in the right direction and give them fine tips. Then there's also students who come in and that they're not quite naturally as gifted at interacting with people as well, and so we might need to spend a little bit more time with them in this setting. But yeah, it's an important opportunity for students to be able to kind of develop their communication skills.
We're talking with Dr. Aaron Bernard, Associate Professor of Medical Sciences at Quinnipiac University in North Haven. If one were interested in becoming a standardized patient, because it is a per diem job, it's not the traditional 9-to-5 job, what would one do, say, at your university, for instance?
Yeah, so absolutely. So it's actually a good timing. Come probably June 1st, we'll be opening up recruitment again. We open it up periodically based on kind of attrition and as our program is growing. And so for us, you can either track me down through the internet or the formal job application. If you go to quinnipiac.edu and you find their My Careers page, there'll be an application on that, and then we review all the applications and probably talk to me on the phone and such. But yeah, so the positions are, as you said, it's part-time work. It's a little bit periodic in nature. There's an ebb and flow depending on how much requests we have from the students. So it's not right for everybody. It's not meant to be kind of a full-time gig or anything along those lines. But for the right person, it's a nice kind of either supplemental income or activity. We have a fair amount of standardized patients who are retired or quasi-retired, and they're looking to stay engaged in life, engaged in activities. They need something to do. They don't mind making a little bit money for their grandkids, and it's a perfect match because not only does it keep them engaged, it's really interesting work. You learn a lot about healthcare. You learn a lot about medicine, communication. You're not just playing the part, as we said. We teach you to be able to grade the students and then talk to them and say, hey, here's what you did well, here's what you can improve upon. So what we find is for the right person who the hours fit and the limited work is good for them, a lot of people really love it. They really.
You mentioned retarees before. Is there a particular age group, or are there all age groups?
Yeah, no, we actually want people of all ages, 18 and up. So that we can have different age presentations to the students, because they're going to see people of all age groups. I mentioned retired people only because they are often looking for this kind of part-time work, and they don't necessarily need so many hours. And the other thing is the work it's not always like 9 to 12 on this day. We work with people, but it kind of comes in different times and such. So that's one group. But we have people of all different ages. We have a fair amount of actors too. You don't have to be an actor to be a standardized patient, but their schedule, at any age, younger ones as well, works pretty good, because they're often doing kind of a little bit of acting on different hours, but they have these hours during the work week free, or they might go and do be in a play for 2 months, but then the play will end and they need some work. And so that's the kind of thing we can do. We can kind of do a little bit here. If you need to go away, one of our standardized patients goes to Florida in January. It's that sort of thing. We need people who can be relatively engaged to stay good at it. People that we can, are available to meet our needs. But we also have some flexibility. So actors are another group of people who it seems to work for. But we got all groups of people. We have a veterinarian tech who is a young man, and he works overnight shifts at a vet hospital, and sometimes he'll come in after the overnight and do some of this, or sleep for a couple hours and come in, and he doesn't necessarily need the money. He just loves it, and he likes being involved. We have.
You wouldn't ask to see the patient's paw or anything like that if he might get tired.
Well, there is a book. I'm trying to think of it. That relates how veterinarian and human medicine have similarities. Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think. We have retired school teachers. We have
fossils like Ed.
Yeah,
that'll be fine.
But yeah, our current crew, we have about 30, really active, 35 people total. And we have people of all different backgrounds, education, some healthcare. Actors, and so we have people who ran labs, all sorts of different people with interesting backgrounds and accomplishments. So it's not necessarily one type, really kind of just if it fits your schedule, and what you're looking for in terms of employment, those are the kind of the bare bones.
Can you walk us through a typical portrayal of a standardized patient and a medical student?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have over probably close to 50 different cases, and when we give a script to the standardized patients, they're like, not to be intimidating to anybody who's interested in applying, but they're literally like 12 pages long. And it's interesting because you know, when you're an actor, you're given a script that's word for word. You know what the other person's going to say. But as a standardized patient, you know, we want you to be standardized in what you're going to tell the student so that we know each student who's seeing heart failure or seeing, you know, appendicitis is going to hear the same things. But it can't be word for word because you could start saying something, but you don't know what the student's going to say, you know. And so you got to be able to improvise a little bit. So we had one case where one of the patients, I think they were getting a hip replacement or something, and their hobby was golf, and so the student was asking them, you know, why did you get the hip replacement? And the student saying, well, and the patient says, well, you know, I like playing golf, and I'm having trouble, so I want to get this done before it's too late. And the patient in real life doesn't golf, and the student goes, so, you know, what's your handicap? And the standardized patient, you know, if you don't know what a handicap is, you know, but he did a great job, and he goes, oh, it's terrible, you don't want to know about it, you know. So you need to have that kind of quick wit to be able to improvise a little bit, but also stick to the script. But
do you write the scripts, or do other doctors write the scripts?
You know, right now, typically, I do most of them. So normally what I'll do is I work with different faculty from School of Nursing, Medicine, and Health Sciences, and they might say, hey, we want our students to see like a patient with chest pain who's having a heart attack. We want to see somebody who has high blood pressure. We want to see somebody who has sore throat. And so I'll kind of intake their general idea of what they're thinking about, and then usually I'll draft the script because at this point I have a better sense of how to put it together so it works well, and then I'll send it back to them, and they can say, I edit a little bit. But for the most part, I'm writing most of them with other faculty guidance and input. And so you know, I give you an example of a case that I thought was interesting we've done in the last year. And you know, one of the Quinnipiac's, the School of Medicine's real interest is in rehab medicine and veterans health. And so we did a case of post-traumatic stress disorder. And, you know, it's perfect because, you know, there's no way we'd ever be able to get all, you know, currently we have 90 students per class, but we're going to be eventually going to 125. All 125 medical students to be able to experience interviewing a patient with post-traumatic stress disorder. It'd just be very challenging to do that. But we can do it with our standardized patients. And so we put together this script, and, you know, the script was about this gentleman. And, you know, he had returned home from war. It was actually a number of years ago, and we did that primarily because a lot of our standardized patients are older. We don't have enough in the kind of 20 age group of a, you know, a soldier who just maybe got home from, you know, Afghanistan. So a lot of them, you know, had come back from Vietnam, and when he had first come home, he had some symptoms, but he kind of, you know, just dealt with them himself. It wasn't as big of a, you know, a recognized condition back then, and he kind of buried it. And then he was on Facebook, and one of his, you know, war buddies posted a picture, and it brought back these memories, and they started stirring. And so the patient comes in, and he's saying, you know, I'm just feeling really stressed and anxious. You know, I feel on edge. I'm always feeling like something bad's going to happen. You know, I'm getting into arguments with my wife, and the standardized patient, you know, the patient's there trying to, you know, get help for this stress. And so the student has to kind of ask questions to kind of not only figure out what's going on, to get into the background of the patient, but they also have this really, you know, anxious person in front of them, and they have to take the time to kind of communicate with them, talk to them, calm them down, reassure them that, you know, they're going to take care of them and get them the help they need, talk to the patient about, you know, what are your thoughts on this? What would you like to do? You know, are you interested in therapy or medication or both? They also examine our patients, and in this case it's interesting too, because if you imagine you have somebody who's very anxious and, you know, experiencing something as difficult as PTSD, the student needs to learn to be very cautious about approaching them the physical exam and tell them, hey, I'm going to examine you now, I'm going to listen to your heart, because you don't want to startle somebody who's, you know, feeling that way. So that was a really powerful day. That day it was kind of a psychiatric type day, and we had the students saw that case, and they saw a depression case, and the depression case was powerful too. I mean, the standardized patients, you know, were kind of, you know, a lot of them were in tears, and the students, you know, amazing, when they walked out of that day where they saw those two patients, they were like, you know, I knew this was fake. I couldn't believe it. You know, it was so powerful to me. So
it actually kind of leads me to my next question, although I think you partially answered it. Once you write the scripts and have gone through with the students, do you review it with the faculty members to see if the script needed to be tweaked or anything needed to be added or taken out?
Absolutely. So, it's like anything else. After you kind of vet it once and kind of trial it, you're able to tweak things. And so I would say, we're finishing up our second year of our medical school now, and we've probably run most of our cases twice now. And between the first and second time, we are able to get that feedback. We usually go to the students, faculty, and the standardized patients, say what worked, what didn't work, and just adjust it. We can even watch some videos just to make sure it runs smoother. But and then the other thing we could do is we could spend more time or less time on training on certain things that we think that the standardized patient might need to know more about or be more prepared to do with the students. So, with the way we kind of train our standardized patients, I don't know if you want to hear about that.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So, it's, again, most of our people who do this work have no background in medicine, and so usually when we hire people, we first do some general training. We teach them this is what a medical interview is supposed to be structured like. This is some basic physical exam. This is how communication should go. And then we let them kind of, have some cases with students and kind of learn from that. But as they move on, before they do each case, we kind of get together as a group and we read through the case and then we mock it up. Sometimes I'm the student and when
By mock it up, a role play thing. Okay.
Role play before we go live, and we do that a couple times. So, we don't throw the standardized patients, into the fire. But
thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we're getting better and better at doing them, and I think they're more and more realistic each time. And the more we tweak them, the better we can ensure that the students are getting something out of them and learning.
Do you get feedback from the students as well, or just the faculty members? Or the faculty members, I assume, get feedback from the students?
Yeah, we get it from all directions, and generally it's overwhelmingly positive. The general request is, can we do more of it? When can we do this again? And that's true for all of our different programs. We actually work with the occupational therapists and the physical therapy students, physician assistant students, and that's generally the feedback we get. They find it really helpful to whether it's just trying out a new skill or just practicing one they've already learned. But the feedback is generally very positive.
So talking about the cases and about the standardized patient, and you'll be taking on more patients in June. In your opinion, what does it take to become an effective standardized patient? What skills or abilities?
Well, it's a great question. We've kind of watched this for a couple of years now and learned a lot about it. I will say we've had some people since the day we started who've stuck around, and I really think it's what maybe they didn't know what they were getting themselves into completely, but once they did it and they realized they loved it, I think they became passionate about doing it. And I think that's like any job. When you're passionate about it, when you see the impact you're having with the students, our standardized patients, they go above and beyond, making sure they know the script inside and out, making sure that they play the part as intended. But things that we look for, it does require a fair amount of memory, learning the scripts, some flexibility in terms of being able to kind of interact with people. And then, again, we empower our standardized patients. They have one-on-one meetings with the students and give them feedback. So we want people who are comfortable, doing that, criticizing a medical student or critiquing them might be a better word.
Okay, good.
This
has been fast. Is it 30 minutes? Seems like 30 seconds.
Yes. But
we must do this again.
Aaron will be back on our next show.
Perfect. I would love to.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time with more with Aaron. Good night, everyone.
Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom. Turn your dial to cable 18. You will see the best in TV. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom. sit back and listen. You will hear the best conversation of the year. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom. Just talking with Tom.